In this tutorial, we'll go through the functions of the R3 remote and how to use it. The R3 remote features the throttle wheel, a multi-purpose button, an OLED display, a USB-C port, and a lanyard. Having the lanyard looped over your wrist makes two-handed tasks more convenient and keeps the remote from being misplaced by accident. The throttle wheel controls the acceleration and braking of your board by scrolling forwards and backwards. The USB-C port is used for charging the remote and supports up to 1 amp of charging current at 5 volts. Most mobile device chargers should work, but if you're unsure, look for one with a 5-volt 1 amp output. The OLED screen displays information like the board and remote's battery levels, current speed, current ride mode, and the board's trip meter and odometer. It'll also be your default method to navigate through your remote and board settings. The multi-purpose button next to the screen can be used to power on or off your remote and board, navigate the remote menu, and toggle different riding modes. To power on the remote, hold the multi-purpose button for 2 seconds. The Exway logo should appear, followed by the home screen shortly after. Clicking once on the same button changes the ride mode. Double-clicking the button toggles on or off cruise control mode. Triple-clicking the button switches riding orientation between forward and reverse. Clicking 4 times toggles tank mode, in which the board will rotate on the spot. This mode is only available to 4-wheel drive boards. Clicking 5 times toggles turbo mode, which unlocks the full performance potential of the board. We recommend not touching this mode until you've gotten familiar with the ride characteristics of the board. Clicking 6 times will bring up the speed limit menu. The options available for now are 10, 25, 35 kilometers per hour, and off. To enter the System Settings menu, hold the multi-purpose button for 5 seconds while the remote is off. In this menu, you should see 9 options. The first 2 options are for repairing the remote to the front and rear controllers, while the third is for selecting your drive mode. For 2-wheel drive, you only need to pair the rear controller. For 4-wheel drive, pair the rear, then the front controller. The base plate printed with an arrow is the front end, while the one with an Atlas logo is the rear end. To pair a controller, press and hold the controller button located on the underside of the board. If the board was in standby mode, the button should blink red once. Press and hold the button again until the light starts blinking rapidly, then let go. The controller is now in pairing mode. Go to the third option named WD mode and select your drive mode. For 2-wheel drive boards, select 2-wheel drive, then return to the previous menu and select the first option, Repair 1. For 4-wheel drive boards, select 4-wheel drive, then return to the previous menu and select Repair 1, and a prompt to pair the front controller ESC2 should appear. Select Yes, then press and hold the front controller button until it starts blinking to enable pairing mode. For 4-wheel drive boards, if the front controller did not pair successfully with the process above, head to the System Settings menu again and select Repair 2. Then press and hold on the front controller button until it enters pairing mode. Once pairing is complete, an exit prompt should appear. You can then select Yes and leave the menu. If you experience issues like unresponsiveness with your throttle wheel, a recalibration may be due. To calibrate the throttle wheel, select option 4 in the System Settings menu, followed by Yes. You should see a throttle sign with an arrow and 2 numbers labeled Now and Old. Fully roll the throttle wheel in the direction of the arrow on the sign, and while holding it, press the multi-purpose button once. Once the throttle sign shows 2 arrows, release the throttle wheel and press the button again. Next, fully roll the throttle wheel towards the other direction per the arrow, and while holding it, press the button once. The previous menu should pop up now, and you can release the throttle wheel. Done! Your throttle wheel should be properly calibrated now. To check your board and remote's firmwares, select option 5 in the System Settings menu. The version labeled R is your remote's firmware. The version labeled 1 is the board's rear controller firmware. If you have a 4-wheel drive board, the version labeled 2 is the board's front controller firmware. To switch between imperial and metric units, select option 6 in the System Settings menu. Then, use the throttle wheel to select your desired units and confirm with the multi-purpose button. For DIY builders or riders who are looking to customize and tune their board further with aftermarket components, we've prepared an advanced settings menu that can be accessed through option 7 in the System menu. The Quick Settings option brings you through the entire tuning process. If you're looking for a specific tweak to make, here's a breakdown of the options. The pole pair setting lets you choose the correct number of pole pairs for your motors. The motor gears and wheel gears settings lets you set the tooth count of your motor and wheel pulleys. The wheel diameter setting lets you set the correct size of your wheels. The brake level setting sets the brake strength. The higher the number, the stronger the brakes. You can even use third-party motors by running our motor detection algorithm to calibrate the controller for them. To access special riding modes and more, click on option 8 in the System menu. Here, you'll be able to enable or disable turbo mode, free mode, cruise control mode, and other settings. Here's a breakdown of what each mode does. Turbo mode unlocks the full performance of the board. In free mode, you'll be able to ride in reverse by scrolling backwards on the throttle. Toggling on cruise control mode maintains your current speed without having to hold the wheel until a new throttle input is detected. Enabling shift lock will disable on-the-fly toggling of riding modes. You'll only be able to toggle a different ride mode once stationary. Enabling charge safety disables the drivetrain when the board is charging. If you have an aux pack connected to the board, disable this option. To upgrade your remote and board's firmware, use the Xskate app to download a copy of the latest firmware onto the remote. Then, head to the Upgrade Firmware option to initiate the process. And finally, to unpair your phone from the remote, select the last option in this menu, Unpair Phone. And that's it! See you in the next tutorial!